Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Bootstrapped Solo. I am Pratik Shaw, and today we're going to be talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly about running your own practice and what it's really like. This podcast is for those who want to know what it's really like to start, run, and grow a law practice. Today's guest is Derek Tran. He runs the Tran Firm, a 6-7 person practice that primarily focuses on employment and personal injury. And he started his practice in his second year of being a lawyer and has been growing strong ever since. Derek, thank you so much for joining us.
Pratik, thank you for having me. And just so everyone knows, I'm the good, Teresa's the badass, and you're the ugly. So just to be clear.
I'll take it. At least I'm included. I'm just happy to be included. So I want to talk about this. I know you started your career at Carney Shigurian's office, right? Good lawyer, great results. You worked there for about a year and then decided to go on your own. Is that right?
That's right. Exactly. I went on my own.
And why did you make that decision?
I working 50, 60 hours a week was just not in my cards. I knew I wanted a family. I knew I wanted to be my own boss. And I thought it was no better time than, at that moment to just hang up my own shingle.
Yeah. So you make the decision at some point, I'm going to go out on my own. Did you have a family at that time, or was it just you?
I think I was engaged or seriously dating at that time. So I knew next steps were marriage and then kids like immediately after that. Yeah.
So did you have this conversation at home? Like, hey, honey, I want to quit my job and start my own law practice. How did that work?
Yeah. It's more like, hey, babe, so how much do you make? Because I'm going to lean on you for loans when I'm short for rent. Yeah, absolutely. I think without having the support of your partner, unless you're like a trust fund kid or you just got investors up the wazoo, you need that support from your loved ones, whether it be your spouse, your partner, or your parents, or some family member that's going to help you out when time gets tough, and times get freaking tough. Right?
Yeah, and I want to get into that, but when we talk about times getting tough, we're not just talking about financial toughness, because that obviously happens, but there's also an emotional roller coaster that comes with this, right?
Absolutely. Look, I when I went on my own, it was really hard. I was lonely. I had no one to talk to. I had no one to bounce cases off of, no one to get input from. Slowly, I built up, my own network of people that I can rely on. A lot of that came through CALA and organizations like CALA and OCTLA and stuff like that. And then it was also me recognizing that, hey, maybe going on my own right out of working for someone was not the best of ideas. So that's when I decided to partner up, and that helped me in my career and my development personally.
So how long were you on your own before you decided to bring on a partner?
Close to a year. Right before I filed the bankruptcy notice. So.
As I'm walking to the bankruptcy court, so I want to talk about that first year. I want to hyper focus on that first year. You leave Carney's firm. You say, honey, I hope you got any dough because I'm about to make $0 for a minute. And you did employment law at Carney's firm, I imagine.
I did, yeah. So I had no idea what I was gonna do. All I knew was like look for office space. Found a little suite with a little office and like some phone company. The guy had phones, like IP phones everywhere, and he just gave me this little corner office and like some signage. And I was like operating out there for close to a year and meeting with clients and stuff like that. And in the very beginning, I was just doing any type of law I can get my hands on.
How did you get your hands on anything? How did you get any clients in the beginning?
So I started advertising in the Vietnamese paper because I opened my office here in Huntington Beach. Now I'm back in Huntington Beach after being in LA. But I started advertising in the Vietnamese paper, did a lot of Yelp stuff, started going to a lot of community events and just getting businesses that way.
And just telling people that, hey, I'm Derek, I'm a lawyer, I got my own law firm. What did you tell people when they said, "Oh, what kind of law do you do?"
I when I first started, I just told them, "Look, listen, I'm a generalist. I'll do whatever you need me to do." I did a couple wills. Knock on wood. I hope I don't get malpractice suits on those. I've done a ton of family cases. So what I learned was having a practice of law where you can actually build and have money come in on a consistent basis, that helped a lot. So I started building up a family practice, family law practice. So I was handling those cases for quite a bit, maybe the first 3.5 to 4 years of my career.
How did you even learn how to do family law? I mean, your experience was in employment law.
Bro, those books like Rudder Guide and Nolos. I mean, I bought every book on Amazon. I just taught myself. I mean, it's called the practice of law. So I taught myself. I really did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever find yourself kind of going to court and watching other people, or did you do any of that kind of stuff? What else did you do? Because you can't learn how to swim by reading a how to swim book. You got to jump in at some point, right?
Yeah.
So you've jumped in, you've signed the client, they're paying you a retainer, and you can't bill them for all the time that you're reading this Rudder group. What did you do?
You're absolutely right. I think there's nothing better than going and observing. So I did attend a lot of hearings. Honestly, I even posted that I would do appearance as an appearance attorney on Craigslist.
Yeah.
And I probably did like
Yeah.
half a dozen of those things. I'm like, what? These assholes are paying me. Oh, sorry. Can I cuss?
No, you're fine.
These jerks are paying me like $50 for something that I should be being paid for like 300 or for 2 hours of my time waiting to be called up, right? So I've done some of that, and as I was sitting there and I was listening to some of these stuff, I was like, oh shoot, I can do this. I can make those arguments. So that's it's all learning. It's how you put yourself out to learn and absorb the information.
And one thing you mentioned I think is important is you start gaining that confidence, right? Because you start seeing what other lawyers are doing, you start reading, and everything starts coming together.
Yeah. It comes with experience, right? It just to a certain extent, I think the nerves are still there sometimes, especially when it's something it's a big hearing that you can lose your case on, like an MSJ. You still get a lot of the nerves there, but like small little hearings, it's like it's gone. I get up there, I'm like, okay.
Oh, in the beginning, I was nervous for CMC. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know what to say.
Yeah, same. But it goes away. It goes away.
I've never done this before.
Yeah.
Say that again?
It goes away. Like the nerves go away.
Oh, yeah.
After like 20, 30 CMCs, you're like, okay, I can do this, It's
right. We know how this is going to go. We've seen it happen. It's going to be fine. Now we make a joke in the office. Oh, did you win the CMC? It's like, oh, yeah, dominated. Obviously, it's not how CMCs go. But so in that first year, you're getting your first cases through the community, through the newspaper. You're kind of building a name for yourself. At what point did you realize, or did you come to the conclusion that, hey, I want to have a partner join me. I don't want to do this by myself.
Pretty quick. I would say like 6 to 9 months out of being on my own. I was like, dude, I don't want to be by myself. I need someone to bounce ideas off of. I need someone to talk to. I need someone to learn with. Not necessarily from, but learn with. And we can really build up a practice together. So and that came together. But I would caution.
How did you? Go ahead.
No, I was just saying I would caution like when I'm on my own now, and there's good reasons for that. So like a marriage, getting into a partnership is a huge deal, and make sure you get into a partnership with someone that you really know and respect and love, because that's at the end of the day that you spend more time at the office than you do at home with your own family.
And how did you know that was? I mean, I know obviously you're on your own now, but like at that moment, how did you decide that this was a person you wanted to do business with, or how did that thought process even come up?
I think I went to law school with her, and we were friends. Were being the key word, we jived well together, and that's and at that time, thinking back, that was the right thing to do. Like there's no regrets on that end, because I learned so much, right?
Yeah. So you come out of you come out of law school, you work at Carney's office, you start your own, you're doing everything that's coming in the door. That first year, let me guess, you made $1 million.
Yeah, divided by 100, maybe 1,000.
Right, exactly.
No, I look. Well, I'm not gonna lie. There was a lot of like, oh, what am I eating today for lunch? Oh, ramen noodles, because that's all I can afford, right?
Exactly.
So I can't go and have steaks like you every day, Pratik. Okay. My budget at that time, I'm lucky if I can treat my client to Starbucks or something like that when I met up with them, because pinching pennies and counting everything was such a it was so important in the beginning, because you can't just
Yeah.
start splurging money outside of having
There's no money to splurge.
yeah,
There's no
yeah.
money to
No, but
splurge.
there's
You know,
credit. There's credit, and I lived
there's
off
credit.
credit,
That's right.
and you
Yeah.
gotta take that chance on yourself. Like I lived off
Yeah.
credit. I was maxing out probably 3 cards, because
Yeah.
someone had to pay for gas, someone had to pay for the filing
Right.
fee. Thank God for
Right.
Capital One and Chase and all that, Chase Inc.
Shout
Shout
out to
out,
Chase and
yeah.
Capital One. Yeah. So the first year you get through, I mean, was there a point there in that first year, in the second year, where you're like, should I keep going? What am I doing here?
Yeah, eventually I got into a groove, and that groove was like, my passion was employment law, and I was signing up those cases, and I was litigating those cases. But at the same time, those cases weren't settling for like 18 months to 2 years out, and I knew that, because you
Right.
got to litigate those cases. So at the same time, I focused. I became less of a generalist, and I'm more a family law lawyer. So I was signing up a bunch of family law cases, and I was doing custody stuff. I was doing domestic violence stuff. And I took it as experience. One thing, like
Yeah.
one of the things was experience. Getting to go argue in front of the court, and then the other one was, it's a steady stream of income, because I charge a
Right.
retainer, and then I build off of that. So that
Right.
helped me a lot.
And how did you, in the beginning, how did you make sure that you were providing competent representation? We talked a little bit about the Rudder Guide and kind of watching some appearances. Obviously there's that stressor. If you take money from a client, you want to make sure you do a good job for them. How did you ensure that you were doing a good job for them?
It all boils down to your belief in your own capabilities, and the fact that you're not slacking, and you're researching the law, you're learning. I mean, look, how am I confident that I'm not committing malpractice on a daily basis? It's because I'm learning every day, every moment of the day. I'm learning, and I'm bettering myself from that. I didn't take on
Right.
like a big case where my client was a multimillionaire, or was trying to sue her millionaire husband and stuff like that for a divorce,
Right.
and get all kinds of alimony and whatnot. I knew my capabilities. I did simple divorces. I did simple child custody modifications. And that's where I learned. And then slowly, as I built up more confidence, I took on the more complex cases.
Yeah, being self-aware is super important, right? Like, you have to have the ability when you start off, you have to have the desire to want to say yes to everything, but the self-awareness and the knowledge to be able to say no to things that are not a good fit. I mean, there were times where I had a criminal case come through my office early on. The lady told me it was a simple assault. I show up to the hearing. Turns out it's a homicide. I'm like, I should not be doing this case. I'm a year and a half in as a lawyer, and I had to tell the client, like, I'm sorry. Here's your money back. I can't represent you in a homicide. Like, we're all going to jail.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be in there with them.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that. Did you have any of a big case or anything like that happen where you were just like, this is outside my zone, I'm gonna need to call somebody?
Oh, absolutely. I think what you said is so key. Being self-aware and having the network of attorneys that you can refer your clients to, because you're incapable, or maybe you're just not at that stage where you can represent them yet, and at that level, being able to refer them to someone who can. Yeah, I've done it many times. And even today, when a huge PI case comes in, or a big wage and hour class comes in, I don't handle that stuff. I'm smart enough to know, hey, Pratik, what's your referral fee? Here's this case,
Yeah.
So, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, we do the same thing, right? It's all a matter of finding the right home while also trying to make sure you make a little bit money off of that for the work that you've done, and that's the only fair way to do it.
Yeah.
And so, at what point, you're a year in, you partner up, you guys are working together, you're building, you're learning together. At what point did you feel like, okay, I finally got something here. We got some traction. We're making some money. We can keep going.
I would say close to 2 years in. 2 years in, and
Okay.
when you have the money to hire your first legal secretary, to lick the envelopes and the stamps, and send out your mailings, and so you don't have to do it anymore. That's when I felt like, oh, I could do this. Like I could make this into a successful business.
Right. Yeah, you're not a millionaire yet, but you're getting there.
Yeah,
And you're like, okay, I can see the steady income coming in. I'm not, we're not rich. We're not buying that house in the Palisades or anything like that. But I can see where this is going, right? I feel like we got something real here.
absolutely.
Was there a moment that you had, you're engaged, or no, I'm sorry, you were married already, but when you started your practice, right?
I think, engaged when I first started. Yeah.
Okay, so you're engaged, you're heading towards marriage. Was there a point in this journey where you were able to go home and say, honey, I think I got this?
I mean, she's still waiting for me to say that, you know? So, no,
Yeah, right.
look, is there a point? There's always going to be, like, one thing about having your own business is the ebbs and flow, the ups and downs of having your own
Yeah,
firm.
yeah,
And I can't tell you how great 2020 was for me in the start of pandemic. I mean, it was amazing, right? And then 2021 was just like a nosedive. I mean, a nosedive. So it
right.
was probably one of the worst years I've had in a long time. But you roll with your punches. You roll up your sleeves, and you get back in, and you battle it out. I mean, that's all part of being
100%.
yeah, that's all part of being an entrepreneur and having your own business. So
And
when you say, like, is there a point? I don't think there's ever going to be that point, because if I come home and I tell I got this, like, first of all, she's going to stop working, and I don't want that shit. So,
what happened?
but no, in all seriousness, I think it's always like, there's always growth. Like, not, I have one
Yeah,
lawyer full time. I have a paralegal full time. I want a second lawyer full time, and another
yeah,
paralegal full time.
right,
And at
right.
that moment, and as you keep growing, there's going to be that constant need where you're going to have to keep needing to make money and needing to be
Yeah,
there, and that you keep moving that needle, and you keep moving those goals for yourself, which is a great thing. But more money, more
yeah,
problems, right? That's the saying. And I
exactly,
guess it's
exactly. The great philosopher of our time, Biggie Smalls, right? More money, more problems. And so, okay, so you were doing family law, you're building your family law practice, you're a couple years in, you've got this kind of robust, consistent flow of income, and then at some point you switch the dial up and say, I'm going into employment in PI. What happened?
yeah. So the stress of, like, your clients calling you over every little thing, like, he dropped the kids off late again. Like, I want you to go in for an order, or I want to do this, and that got to me. They're calling you at nights, on the weekends.
Yeah,
The stress got to me on that. But more than anything, I think when I settled my first, like, $250,000 employment law settlement, that was a big deal for me. I was like, holy crap,
oh
you
yeah,
know?
oh my God,
Yeah,
yeah. The
real
first
money.
quarter
I was
million
like,
dollar case, like,
yeah,
oh my God,
holy
yeah,
crap, real money. So that's when you're like,
yeah,
okay, I really got to shift my practice and focus. I can get more of these quarter
yeah,
million dollars, these six-figure settlements,
yeah,
if my time is not being spent on family law. So there comes
right.
a time where you just got to make that adjustment, and that's your call on how your business is running and what practice area it is. Yeah.
And how long was it before you got that $250,000 settlement? From year two as a lawyer you started, which was year one of your practice.
Yeah,
When did that actually happen for you?
around year three.
Year
Yeah.
three, yeah. And I think that's important. I want to give people a realistic timeline of what it really takes to start kind of turning the corner financially, right? Maybe in year two you started feeling like, okay, I know that this is going to work, but it's not until year three or even post that where financially it starts clicking.
Yeah.
It seems like that's about right for you. Is about year three is when it started. Okay, I'm not having ramen anymore. I'm still not having steaks, but I've moved on from the
Subway,
ramen.
Subway,
Is that
Subway,
accurate?
bro. Yeah, Subway,
Subway. I'm
Subway.
moving to the $5 footlongs I lived on. Going through that, those $5 foot. Shout out to Subway. It's on the $5 footlongs, because you're right. You're penny pinching everything, especially if you start taking on contingency work. Because now you're like, there's a $435 filing fee. Oh wait, I have to pay that.
Yep.
Oh no, and that starts adding up. If you have 10 cases, that's $4,350.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Look, like, around year three, I felt a little bit more comfortable. I could eat somewhat real meals now, but at the same time, it never stopped me from parking at a cheaper lot to save $60
Right,
and times two attorneys, like $120 a month, and I had to walk that extra
right.
5-7 minute walk. Like, you're gonna have to do and sacrifice what you need to do for yourself and the betterment of your
Yeah.
business. So
And in this time that you've been building your practice, how long have you had your practice now? When was it that you left Carney's firm and actually started your
oh
practice?
God, you're making me do math. Jesus. I think I left in 2014 sometime. I'm sorry. Yeah,
Okay.
2014 sometime. And then like I've been on my own with my own firm, the Tran Firm, since the pandemic, which is like a horrible time to go on your own. So 2020, I
Right.
want to say like late fall of 2020.
Yeah.
So it's not even
And
2 years old.
looking back, yeah, so it's about six. Well, the Tran Firm is about 2 years old, but you being your own boss and running your own show with or without a partner has been about 6, 7 years, 8 years almost.
Well, no,
That
yeah,
seems
yeah,
about
yeah,
right.
with a partner, you mean? Like at some point, yeah,
Right,
yeah,
even with
yeah,
a
yeah.
partner, right? Because you're still
Yes,
kind
yeah,
of you guys are sharing
yeah,
the stress, but the stress is still there. Of we got rent,
yeah,
we just negotiated a lease for a year, you know, and how do we know we're going to have enough money to pay for this lease for a whole
yeah.
year?
Yep.
I've had those stresses, right? Or when I hire an employee, it's like, payroll comes quick when you got employees.
Yeah.
2 weeks, I can't settle a case. Where's the money coming from? You know,
But
and so that
I can't. I'm sorry. On that same thought, like I can't tell you
please jump
how
in.
many times I called my mom and be like, "Hey, mom, I need like 5,000 just for like a month because I need to pay rent. I got to pay a couple filing
Yeah,
fee." Absolutely, that was done. Thank goodness it's I she hasn't received that call from me in like years, but it happens,
yeah,
and you got to set your pride
it happens.
aside and be able to do that. You know.
That's an important thing, right? Is setting your pride aside, not having any ego about when or who you're going to be talking to for help, right? Whether it's I've learned from lawyers that have less experience than me. I've learned from people that I wouldn't necessarily want to emulate everything they're doing, but I've learned from little bits of what they're doing from your wives, from your partners, your parents. I mean, everybody has something to offer, and not having pride get in the way of being able to ask for help is a huge point that I'm glad you're making. Is I think that sometimes what we see out there is ego drives a lot of
Yeah.
decisions, and to me, that's just going to drive you off a cliff. Your thoughts on
No,
that?
I agree. I mean, look, I've seen some of these attorneys who right away have the fancy office, and they hang up their own shingle, and then all of a sudden they're renting in Beverly Hills in a nice high rise building, paying all kinds of money. They pay more in their parking than I do for like my paper supply or something like that for like half a year,
Right.
and I'm thinking to myself like, holy crap! If I did it that way, I almost for sure set myself up for failure. So at the same time,
Right.
yeah, get it. You want to be in the nicest suite, the nicest zip code, but you got to recognize like, hey, can you put yourself there? Can you have enough savings to hold you up there for like 9 months or a year? If you do, good for you, great, amazing. But if you don't, it's
Yeah.
a reality check, and check that ego and check that pride, because that's going to be your downfall, and it could be your downfall.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, for me, in the first couple of years, there were several months where we had dry spells, where there were no cases, no money coming in, zero income, and I start thinking, what is happening? Am I going to ever make money again? You ever go through anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going through that now, right now. Like all my trials from 2021 got kicked to this year, and just last month
Yeah.
I got a trial kicked again. So no
Yeah.
trials, no settlement, and
Right.
that's so true. Like saying can't be more true. So yeah, look, it happens. You're gonna have great months when it rain it pours, and you'll be like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
awesome, like 5 settlements in 1 month, yes. And you're gonna be
Yeah.
like, holy crap, I haven't paid myself in like 6 months. I haven't paid myself in 7 months. It's gonna happen, and
Yeah.
you got to make those
Yeah.
sacrifices. Yeah, so for sure, as a business owner,
And that's super important when we talk about when you do settle that $250,000 case, or whatever $500,000 case, your first big quote unquote big case, and you take a nice chunk home. Don't go and buy that fancy watch, right? You gotta save it, because we know these dry spells are coming, and you're gonna have to make sure that you've got it in the account, especially if you have employees, because their payroll gets taken out
yeah,
first.
yeah, don't splurge. That's so that you're so right, because saving and setting it up for your future is what you need to do, and you need to have that extra reserve in your bank, so that way the next dry spell that comes, you're prepared for it.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: you get in a time machine, you go back, you meet Derek Tran when he just left Carney's firm, he's just starting his practice. What do you tell them?
Let's say in about 7 years, you're gonna meet this guy named Pratik Shaw. Stay the f away from him. Like just like
Yeah,
stay away from
fair,
him. Stay
fair,
away from him. No matter what they tell
fair.
you, you know, you can love Teresa, but just stay away from Pratik. Yeah, no. Uh,
Okay, that's a given. Other than that,
I would say this. I was like, hey, no matter how hard it gets, it's gonna be okay. Just keep your head down, grind, and believe in yourself. And I mean, it's corny, but it's true because if you don't believe in yourself,
yeah,
you're gonna fail. You're gonna fail, and
yeah.
you are gonna have those small hiccups and hurdles in your life, but you just gotta pick yourself back up and get through it.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, I think believing in yourself is such a kind of quote unquote cliche, like you said, but it's true because in the beginning nobody else believes in you. Like maybe your family, right, and you've got a support system, your spouse and partners and whatnot. But like generally speaking, half the time your clients don't believe in you. They paid you because they didn't have anywhere else to turn. And really, I mean, that's how I felt. Is like if I don't have the confidence in myself, then why should my clients have confidence in me?
Yeah,
Why should the next client have confidence in me? And so you have to have that own confidence. You have to kind of catch it and make sure it doesn't turn into cockiness or arrogance. But there's nobody else,
yeah.
right? There's nobody telling you, oh, you're doing an amazing job. There's nobody patting you on the back and saying, yeah, you're doing things the right way. You don't know if you're doing things the right way. And so, like you said, there are times when you're a solo, it gets lonely. So I want to talk about kind of the low points in the first year as a solo. I know it's tough, but hey, I've been there.
Yeah.
We're trying to give the young kids the real talk, right? Talk to me about what you're thinking about when I say the low point.
Look, like it doesn't get any lower than not being able to probably pay for your car payment, right? Not being able to pitch in at family gatherings because you were supposed to bring the turkey or the prime rib or something like that at a family function. You got to tell them like, hey, listen, like time's a little rough, or I just started. I can bring some mashed potatoes or mac and cheese,
Right.
or and then
Right.
figuring out how you're gonna set up your credit cards to pay for your car payment. It's real, but at the same time, like if you believe in yourself and you know it's just a hump that you have to get over, you're gonna get over it because
Yeah.
you, there's no other choice. If you're gonna admit defeat, then submit and go work for someone. Go do the 50, 60 hours a week. Go work for someone else because you've given up.
Right.
But if you believe that you're gonna go through months of hard time, and yeah, you might be delinquent on a couple bills, then so be it. But there's no
Right.
one better for you to invest in than yourself and to believe in than
Yeah.
yourself. Because why am I gonna work 60 hours to make some other dude rich? When I can make myself rich. And it's not just that. There's more than just money, right? It's self fulfillment. It's this personal. Hey, I've done it. I've accomplished this, and I did it on my own. And I can support myself, and I can support my family. It's something that I built with my own hands. So it's a lot of stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of low moments, and I can't count them all on one or even two hands because there's a lot. I mean, look.
Right.
How many times have I gone to lunch with like a mentor in the past who's like, oh, I'll pay the bill, and I'm ashamed because I can't even like throw my own credit card and be like, no, I'll split it with you, or can I treat you? Like
Yeah.
I can't treat you. You made me meet you at this 5-star restaurant, and I'm
Yeah.
not paying like $200 for a lunch,
Yeah. I'll take a water.
right? So
Yeah.
there's a lot of low moments, but you just gotta always, believe in yourself. So corny.
So on the flip side, no, it's not. I think it's truth. I think there's a reason they're cliches because they're true, right? They're absolutely true. And I know exactly, I went through the same stuff. So I 100% can commiserate with you on that. But I want to kind of flip it and say, there were obviously high moments because there were some positives that made you keep going. Because if it was all low moments, you'd have just shut it down and be done. But what were those, as small wins as they were, as small as those positives may have been, what were those positives that made you keep going?
Look, I mean, look, we got into what we're doing for a reason, right? Which is helping people. I think every time that I have a client cry because I've changed their life or I've given them their settlement check or their check, and then they tell you, you don't know what this means to me, how you've changed my family. or a client that takes a picture of a house that she just closed for her family when she was fired on a pregnancy discrimination case. Those are things that it's going to stay with me for the rest of my life. So those highs are always going to be there. Not to mention the amount of people that I've met and are part of my life who I don't ever envision not having in my life. You guys being two of them. Like I love seeing you guys at events, and I love bonding with you guys. And some of my closest friends are my attorney friends who I not just talk business or consult business. I consult on life. Like, what should I do about this? Should I buy this? What do you think of me getting a house now? It's not the right time, or personal problems. So having friends in the industry and building on those relationships, it's a high moment. It's great. It's meeting these great people who are out there doing what you're doing, which is getting justice for these injured clients of ours. It's an amazing thing. And then, getting justice for your clients. You always got to remember why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah. And what is your favorite part about running your own business? Like we talked about highs, we talked about lows. Through all of that, in the 6, 7 years, 8 years that you've been doing this, what is the thing you just love? You love doing that gives you that high every time?
Look, I got 2 kids. One of my favorite things to do is I'll surprise them. I'll pick them up early from school, and I'll just go spend half of the day with them, or sometimes a whole day. You can't do that when you work for someone else. You can do that when you're your own boss. And if there's nothing important going on in your schedule for that day, go take off. Go spend time with your loved ones. I love that. I love the fact that I could at any time just get up and walk out of my office because I need to go work out, or I need to go have lunch with you, Pratik, or whatever it is. Like there's no one controlling me from the top. You are the top. You decide what you want to do. So that is probably, the flexibility is my favorite thing about being my own boss. Now, on the flip side, the worst thing about being my own boss,
that was going to be my next question,
making payroll every month, making rent every month. It's like you see this money that's a constant that's just draining your account, right? And but that's what you signed up for. So I got to remind myself, like, oh, like crap, I'm spending that much on payroll or on supplies, or vendors that I need to get productions of trial docs,
Right.
It's all part of the process.
Yeah. There are pros and cons. I think that part of the reason we have this podcast, and part of the reason I want to talk to people like you, is because I think it's important to let everybody know there are pros. There are lots of great, high, huge pros, but that's all anybody talks about. There are lots of cons too. And no matter how long you've been doing the business, those cons are going to exist because, like you said, the dry spells happen no matter how long you've been practicing. Maybe you didn't sign as many cases as you thought you were going to. Maybe the trial got kicked that you were kind of relying on happening, because at least that brings that case to a conclusion one way or another, whether it's a settlement or a verdict one way or another. At least and that time is now being spent on another case. And so that thing doesn't change. That's not going to change for 30 years. Now, when I say that, hey, look, these highs and lows that we deal with, you're going to be dealing with that for the next 30 years that you're going to be practicing. How do you feel about that?
I love it. I signed up for this. Bring it on. If this lifestyle is not for you, you got to quickly realize that and get out, because you're just going to waste your time, and you're just going to be more frustrated with the practice, and more than anything, you're not going to be happy. So recognize that. But if you recognize and accept that this is what you signed up for, and I love it. I love the dry spells, and I love the high points. And I love it when the money rolls in, and I love it when I have to tighten my belt for this month. So no staff lunches this month, or whatever it is that you have to cut back on. It's part of the process, and as long as you recognize that and you accept it, it's fine. For me, it's more than fine. It's my dream.
I love that. And so kind of we're wrapping up here, but a couple of questions I do have is, you started off advertising the Vietnamese paper, going to the community events. Are you still doing that? Has your marketing plan switched? what do you do now, or what? How did it switch? Tell me the timeline of what you learned from those and how you changed things, if any.
Yeah, so I don't do as much marketing as I used to anymore, only because a lot of my business is word of mouth and co-counsel and referrals from other fellow attorneys who don't practice the area that I do. So I've cut back on that. I mean, you got to try what works for you. I remember spending a few $1,000s, probably nothing for you, but back then, like a few $1,000s every month on Google and Yelp was a lot of money. I mean, it was more than I was paying for almost my office space. But I wanted to try it out, and you got to figure out what works for you. And that's when I learned that didn't work for me. I think what worked for me was getting out there, being seen. I was attending every network function there was. I mean, from the downtown LA Bar Association to the Filipino Bar Association. I mean, the Thai Bar Association. Any bar association, they had a social network. I was there, and I was like, I do this type of law, and I was just building relationships, and I was getting cases that way. So, and now it's more or less the same. Like, I still attend almost every conference possible, and I still, I sell myself by attending these events and telling people what I do. So I would cut back quite a bit on the marketing, the paper marketing, the ads. But I just recently translated my website into Vietnamese, thanks to the help of Teresa and her team. So I plan on doing a little bit more work with the Vietnamese community and the community that I'm ethnically associated with, right? So.
Yeah. Awesome. And how does it? Do your parents live close to you? Where's the family? How does that work for you? Because I know you mentioned you call your mom sometimes, but she's local.
Yeah, she's pretty local. She's about 35 minutes away from me.
Okay.
I live in Orange County now. My practice is out here. She's in the San Gabriel Valley. I grew up in the San Gabriel Valley. That's like Monterey Park, Rosemead, San Gabriel.
Yeah.
So she's still out there. My dad passed a few years back, so it's only her. She lives with my siblings, so she's fine. But yeah, look, having the people that you love around you is a price. It's priceless, and especially when you have a family. I mean, it really takes a village, right? And that same kind of goes with having a law practice as well, because you need to know who does criminal law, or who does this, or who can answer my question about this expert discovery, this person, you got to build that village that's going to help you, and having that is priceless.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think I had a group of friends, some that started their own practice same time I did, some that were more experienced, and being able to ask questions that what anybody would consider dumb questions, but I didn't know. And so I'd ask, and I'd get good answers, and I'd be like, oh, wow, thank you. That was so helpful. I mean, there's so many dumb questions in the beginning, quote unquote, but there is no dumb question because you're learning. And, all guys like us can do is now pay it forward, right? There's people that are starting out and doing things, and being able to kind of counsel them or guide them and say, here's what I did, here's what helps, I think is super helpful. So I truly believe that a lot of people that are starting their practice are going to find this very helpful, because you said exactly what I believe too, is the ups and downs are natural. Don't beat yourself up too much when you're down, and don't pat yourself on the back too much when you're high, right? Because the next bump or the next high is coming. They're coming, and it's just constantly rolling, right? A dangerous thing can be you hit a big case and you're like, oh, I'm the man, I'm the woman, I figured it out now, because the next kind of slap across the face is coming. Is just right around the corner.
Yeah, I agree.
So it sounds like we've kind of both been through both of that. But go ahead, you were going to say something.
No, as you were talking, I was thinking one thing that that's important for the younger lawyers and the ones that's starting out to really keep in mind, and that's don't ever touch your client's trust account. I mean, I was taught that my first year, and to this day, like I live by that. And that's like rule number one. And that's the quickest way for you to get disbarred and for you to lose your dream, is don't ever, no matter how bad it gets, do you ever touch the money that's in that trust account. I don't care. Call your mentor up, call one of us up, and be like, hey, can you help me out for
Right.
$3,000 so I can make rent? But don't touch that client trust account. I mean, we don't hear that enough, I think.
Right. No, I agree. I don't think it can be said enough because I think I now we have a banker right that works with our firm, and I talked to the banker, and he's like, you know, it's not right to touch your client's trust account, right? I'm like, no, of course not. Like, who would do that? He's like, I got other lawyer friends, that lawyer clients that are like, oh, transfer money here and there between my trust account and the personal. And I was like, I'm not one to say I'm not the police, but they should not be doing that. That's just going to end in a bad way. That's never going to end in a positive
Yeah.
way. But yeah, I agree. I mean, if you're at the point where you're like thinking about it, you got to start making calls and asking people for help, and you got to set that pride aside because that is a bright line rule. You just can't do it. It's never going to end well, and even if you borrow it from the trust account and pay it back, that doesn't work. Don't do that. Just move on from it. So that's great advice. I mean, let me ask you. You get an email from a young lawyer, Derek. You built an employment law practice. I want to do it. Maybe it's a young Vietnamese lawyer says, I want to do what you did. What do? You get that email. What do you do?
I don't turn anyone away who asks me for my help. Whether or not they like what I have to tell them when we meet, and because I keep it real, I don't sugarcoat anything. I don't tell them, look,
Yeah.
you're gonna make millions. You're gonna make so much
Yeah.
money. I always tell them like it's really freaking hard. Like it's outside of you getting lucky and getting that one case that just comes in and they want to settle right away, or that wrongful death walking in and you settling within 6 months. It doesn't happen, and be prepared.
Right.
So whether you're Vietnamese or you're Indian, you're Hispanic, I mentor everyone that comes my way, and I talk to them at least. And I help. There's one thing that I always give Min Win a lot of credit, because when I was a young lawyer and I met with him, he was gracious enough to meet with me, take me out for lunch, take me under his wing, and he asked of one thing, and he goes, "When it's your turn to give back, you will, without question." And I live by that. And he's given so much of his time to me, as among other attorneys and mentors I have. But he's taught that to me, and I always tell my mentees that. I was like, listen, I'm donating my time to you. I give you pleadings. I give you my stuff. When it's your turn, help your mentee. So I think that's very important. It's a cycle. We gotta help each other.
It's everything. Yeah, and that's the reality, right? Like you're not going to help Min by giving him pleadings. He knows what he's saying,
Yeah,
right? He gave you pleadings. The only way you can pay back a guy like Min who helped you out is by adhering to his words, which is pay it forward to the next person. I had a mentor like that for me as well that helped me through a lot in those early days because there was a lot of stressors of, I'd wake up in the middle of the night stressed out about my cases and thinking, oh man, is this ever going to end? And then he would laugh at me and goes, I've been doing this 25 years. It's never going to end. You better get used to, just waking up and thinking about your cases and thinking about how you're going to make payroll and thinking about all these things that still happen. It still happens to me. I mean, it's just the way it goes. It's the nature of the business. And what you said was so poignant earlier is that this is what you signed up for. And if it's not what you want, you got to think long and hard about it.
Yep. Either embrace it or recognize it and get out and go work for someone. Or,
Right. And yeah, and no shame
No
in,
shame.
doing what you want, right? Right? And whatever that's best for that person, that's what they should be doing.
Yeah. Look, listen, one of my good friends, she works for someone and she loves it. And that's her. That's her personality. That's what she wants to
Right.
do. And here she is making well over 6 figures, doing very well, nice downtown apartment, driving a fancy ass car, but it works for her. And that's her personality. She could never be
Right.
her own boss or run her own firm. So you got to recognize what's what your strengths are and what you want to do to make you happy, and then do it. That's it.
That's awesome. I love that. I want to end on that. Before we kind of wrap up here, any last things you want to say to anybody that may be listening?
I think it's clear through the podcast today that if you ever need any help, I'm available. You can reach out to me. I think it's going to be hard, but again, just know that the storm will pass and you're going to be okay. And that's my parting words.
I love that. I love that. Thank you, Derek, for being here. I really, really appreciate your time. We know it's valuable. Thank you for everyone that's listening or watching. We'll see you on the next episode of Bootstrap Solo. And remember, just because people like Derek make it look easy doesn't mean that it was effortless. So thank you, Derek. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. This is my pleasure.